On to the next compelling session. I'm happy to introduce Oscar Carlsson from CINT, David Barker from StatSocial, and Yannis K from Edelman. And they'll be taking you through how to improve market research and targeting with social audience insights. Yannis, take it away.
Thanks, Charles. Let's move to the next page. We'll take the next couple of minutes to talk a little bit about how this partnership came together with CINT and StatSocial, but more importantly, why it came together. We realized early on, and I believe a lot of people in this conference realized as well, that there is a tremendous amount of opportunity to combine market research and deep insights with the scale you get from behavioral data, and specifically social audience data and scale. So we wanted to do this in a way that first and foremost started with privacy at the core. And that was extremely important, especially because we wanted to have a solution that would be relevant across multiple parts or multiple places around the world. We wanted to be able to also combine the deep insights, the soulful insights you get through research with the scale you get from audience behaviors and the ability to actually execute. And also, because of that, we wanted to be able to bring in all the informational value that comes in from NLP and AI, the idea of using the connection to language and emotion in our research, and make it actually actionable and executionable, and be able to do that at the speed of news. Because in many ways, I know that most of us think of these applications primarily from a marketing perspective, but there is a tremendous amount of space in the crisis or in the risk management portion as well. If you can understand what are the emotions and motivations and the feelings of people as they experience crisis or risk. So all these components of scale, marrying soul and deep insights from research drove us to work with CINT and StatSocial to create a solution that we can bring to market. And I'm going to pass it over to Oscar to tell us a little bit more about that. So next slide, please.
Thanks, Yannis. To be able to achieve this, we need to work together and combine the power and expertise amongst us here. So to give you some background of CINT, we have for years operated an audience exchange for the insights industry, where we have buyers on one side, which consists of the world's largest agencies. We're looking for audiences to fill our online service, essentially. This is including Yannis and the team at Edelman, the DXI. On the other side, we have suppliers of audiences, which consists of market research companies, publishers, app publishers, amongst others. And what we achieved here is the world's largest insights exchange, essentially, with over 150 million opted-in profile research respondents with PII as identifiers. And at the core of this, we have a value exchange from the individual consumer to the research company building the panel, and they get rewarded with rewards program points for giving their opinions in surveys, cleaning up their data, and also accepting consent for explicit use cases, which are insights driven. So next slide, please. So on this foundation, CINT has built a data matching engine, which respects both the individual supplier settings, which use cases certain suppliers want to participate in, and also what use cases their audience want to participate in. And on the CINT side, we standardize and we collect explicit consent from the individual respondents. And we do automated matching to our data partners, which constantly enrich our identity graph to link respondent profiles to secondary data sets. And this is really where StatSocial comes in, and they will talk more about that soon. This is all built on an automated engine. Everything is standardized and programmatic, so we can move at speed in this. So next slide, please. And to be able to do this successfully, we see three main ingredients which we need to have. The first one is scale. And with a large respondent base, we have the reach and needed to achieve this. We need to have enough people opting in. We need to have enough PIs that match up with partners and so on, and enough panel to be able to run the surveys and add the additional data set. It needs to be privacy compliant. So you need to collect consent at scale, which is all about standardizing the consent that's collected in, and needs to be explicit and explain the use cases and the purpose of what we're actually doing here. And lastly, it needs to be built on an automated platform. It needs to include no manual work, no custom legal processes. Everything needs to be standardized and compliant. And once the infrastructure is in place, it can really be automated and quick. So over to you, David.
Great, thanks, Oscar. Next slide. So in order to help Yanni and Edelman reach their goals, which he laid out to begin with, we have integrated with the CINT panel in order to maintain those three things that Oscar just mentioned: scale, automation, and also privacy first. So first, before we get into that, what StatSocial does is we have a social identity graph that links social IDs and profiles, as well as we built a knowledge graph on top of that, and basically understands various different attitudes, interests, passions, and a variety of other types of data points, influencers, as well as titles, and so forth. So as Yanni is out there doing research, it could be about news, it could be about various different things that they needed to react to quickly. Once we go out and integrate with CINT, which we have done, in order to have global scale to research it, we can then tell Yanni and team a bunch of insights about that. And it could be, again, B2B titles, it could be interests, it could be passions, it could be attitudes, and it could be even down to personalities. So what we have done at StatSocial is we've matched our identity graph at very large scale to CINT panelists. So we have global reach. And from that, we are using the CINT consent to be able to do this across all different regions globally. Next slide, please. So the information that we're giving back is there's sort of three levels of it back to Edelman and clients. First and foremost, whenever there's research being conducted, we have the ability to give, for whatever the respondents, various different attributes, and you can drill down through our platform. So you can understand what brands they have affinity to, personalities, personas, etc., all the way down to activities and interests and jobs. So there's about 100,000 of these segments in the platform that you can index differently in different ways. The second thing, so that's going to give Edelman team a lot more understanding about how to react to various different sort of use cases or incidents, both positive and also negative. It also gives you things like media consumption and preferences. So where do you find these people? It helps with contextual understanding as well. The second level of data that we can actually do is append back to the panelists for research, the data for more advanced analysis internally. And then the third thing we do is that we can actually use this for marketing purposes, so outreach, not directly to the actual respondents, but we can use it for modeling and various other ways so that we can actually go out and try to reach people with messages. If we know more about the type of people, we can use modeling and exclude the actual people that we've been researching, but it actually helps to inform marketing sort of downstream. So this is all the information that we're giving back to Yanni and Edelman that, again, does it in a privacy compliant manner and also does it at very large scale globally. Next slide, and I'll hand it back to you, Yanni.
So overall, with the solution we put together, we're able to combine rich insights coming from research, build audiences that then we can move into activation, expand the insights we can add to the research through all this rich data that David talked about, and activate strategies both from an audience perspective and from content perspective as well. So if you go to the next slide, here is a use case that is actually enabled by the ability to move all this data together and seamlessly connect it. As both Synth and David talked about, we have been doing all this work on research for many years. We're adding all this data from StatSocial, and we're activating at a global scale. If you go to the next slide, You can see an example of how we actually segmented the population using trust, which is something very unique to Edelman, how we see the world and how we activate, and create different audiences where we can either select or deselect for activation and build compelling stories to move them to action. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing, guys. Really great case study on bringing different data sets together. Running short on time, so just again, please join us for the Meet the Speaker session in about an hour.
Thank you.